To start this off, I have a simple question for you. What quantifies a series being successful? Is it how many volumes it sells? Is it how vocal and popular the community for it is? Or is it how well written the narrative behind it pushes itself to be? For me, the answer would probably be all three, but the reality of that question isn't as conclusive, as it sits heavily in your own perspective and how much you value that said series in whatever aspect. So when I say that over the past couple of months, I found it rather interesting that the community or vocal point for a series like Spy X Family is rather hard to find. For how successful this series is currently, with how well it's selling, the community behind it is slow to catch up. Hell, even the acknowledgement for this series existing is oddly rather small. So I thought it would be a perfect time to redo a video on this series, as I did have one before but eventually deleted it because I wasn't happy with it overall, so let's hope I can do it justice this time. What I'm going to do is break down the phenomenal success behind Spy X Family, which ever since it launched back in March of 2019, I've been following rather intensely. And let me just say, the enjoyment I get from this series is honestly unparalleled. Nothing currently is as satisfying to read, and that's not to devalue any of the new stuff that's come out over the years, as I wholeheartedly enjoy them. That's just Spy X Family being such a unique breath of fresh air that is completely unexpected. It definitely took me by surprise, as it's not really my go-to choice for genres, and I don't really favor comedy series all too much, but something, or maybe everything, about it just ticked, and over time the amount I valued it rapidly increased, quickly becoming one of my favorite series amidst a litany of others I read on a weekly basis. Spy X Family is undoubtedly special, and my appreciation for it is extremely high. But to understand why I appreciate it so much, I have to take you through the motions of what makes it so tantalizing, what makes it so addicting, what makes it stand out within a holy light from all of the competition. So with the opening out of the way, let's start off by having a look at how ridiculously successful this series actually is, especially in comparison to some of the new series to release alongside it. It may be surprising to know that Spy X Family isn't a weekly series, yet it's on track to dominate all of the competition in its path. At the forefront of sales and acknowledgement, especially for English speakers and outside of Japan as a whole, is Weekly Shonen Jump. As out of all of the different magazines to be published, even by different companies, Weekly Shonen Jump stands out at the top, telling us how well their series is selling. So for me, it's always interesting to see how well something is doing in Japan, and even outside of it. From the record-breaking Demon Slayer, to newer series like Chainsaw Man or Jujutsu Kaisen. Spy X Family, however, sits in a completely different position, as it's not published in Weekly Shonen Jump, nor is it in any physical magazine from my knowledge. It seemingly is exclusively published digitally in Shonen Jump Plus, and even with this, has managed to absolutely thrive in all of its departments. So let's have a look at how well some series are selling with the amount of volumes they have currently, obviously for context and comparison's sake. My Hero Academia has sold 26 million copies, with 26 volumes, since its release in 2014. The Promised Neverland has sold 18 million copies, with 17 volumes since its release in 2016. And Black Clover has sold 10 million copies, with 24 volumes since its release in 2015. And these series have obviously been around for a decent amount of years now. All of them have a respected anime and are seemingly doing rather well for themselves, which is always great to see. But now let's look at some of the newer series that have gained traction with only having around or less than 100 chapters. Jujutsu Kaisen has sold 4 million copies with 10 volumes since its release in 2018. Act Age has sold 2 million copies with 9 volumes since its release in 2018. And Chainsaw Man has sold 1.6 million copies with 6 volumes since its release in late 2018, early 2019. These newer series are doing extremely well for themselves, and with time and a hopeful anime, they will continue to thrive and flourish into even bigger successes. So now that you have context for various series, let's have a look at Spy X Family, released March 2019 digitally without being published in a physical magazine compared to all of the others before, also released bi-weekly, meaning you get one chapter every 2 weeks, 3 million copies sold, with its 4th volume just released recently. This is beyond impressive. For a series to not be in the primary spotlight of Weekly Shonen Jump, only published in a digital format and doesn't release chapters weekly, yet has sold 3 million copies is absolute insanity. It's in such an early stage that its future seems extremely bright, with a massive potential for an anime to skyrocket it even further than where it is now. There is obviously a reason why Spy X Family is doing so well, and it has nothing to do with promotion or anything tricky. It all comes down to its characters and its story it's trying to tell. A perfect balance between seriousness and comedy that attach itself to completely unique and enjoyable characters that is something inherently refreshing. I understand this series won't be for everyone, which is perfectly fine, but maybe the rest of this video may do the story some slight justice to nudge you over into checking it out. So with that said, let's have a closer look at what makes Spy X Family so riveting, and how it does a fantastic job of connecting you with such interesting and entertaining characters, all while feeling like a completely new experience that keeps you coming back and wanting more. Spy X Family centers around a highly dangerous spy known as Twilight, who ultimately gets tasked with getting closer to a rather powerful and secluded individual. The only way he can progress further with his mission, without stepping on any toes and drawing in any suspicions, is by forming a fake family and enrolling a child into an extremely prestigious school that has connections to that said individual. But obviously this wouldn't be an easy task, as he would have to proxy up his fake child and eventually fake wife to make things seem as normal as possible. Little would he know, the orphan he takes in that would become his daughter, Anya, would have the ability to read people's minds, and his future wife, Yor, would be an extremely skilled and feared hit woman. Now going by the name Lloyd, he has to push forward with his newly formed family to accomplish his mission, all while they hide their massive secrets from one another, as they all start to warm up to the idea of a loving family. There is a tremendous number of things that Spy X Family does extremely well, but the most prominent one that dictates and carries all of the emotions and spreads it throughout every aspect of the story is the family dynamic. This would be Spy X Family's bread and butter, its core, its heart, as it's something you continue to witness grow and evolve in many different directions. It's something that brings you back into focus when the narrative decides to showcase things that are rather heavy or dark that add value and weight to everyone's actions. Each character, Lloyd, Yor, and Anya, are drastically different from one another, and because both Lloyd and Yor are living a different life, you get to witness both sides of them and how they slowly start to merge together to change them at their core, while Anya, who can read minds, is stuck right between them, knowing everything that's going on and what they are trying to hide from her and each other. This plays directly into their personalities and the humor that Anya brings forward, as she is the spotlight of the family, and in some fashion, everything revolves around her. Now, I don't really have the biggest appreciation for comedy within series. I don't outright hate it. It's more so something I don't progressively seek. If a story has humor within it, that's perfectly fine for me. But if the story is solely based on comedy and that's its core purpose, I tend to avoid it. Pretty much just boils down to personal taste at the end of the day. But when I say I absolutely adore the comedy within Spy X Family, I think it's something that even surprised myself. There's something about it that comes off so natural and compelling that you can't help not laughing, especially since the narrative is backed onto some rather serious and dark topics of discussion, stuff that is depicted in surreal ways that come off eerily authentic. It's not hidden within the story as you know it's there, but it's more so another component to help balance out everything extremely well. It makes those comedy, emotional, and slow, heartwarming moments feel all the more real and satisfying. To be completely honest, this series took me by surprise, and I've been absolutely in love with it since chapter 1, to the point where I've been following it religiously ever since. Out of all the great series that I'm enjoying currently, that range from extremely dark, to battle shonen, to thought-provoking, Spy X Family is such a beautiful breath of fresh air that completely washes my palate of any sort of repetition or burnout I may be getting from other series. It's crazy to think that a story that looks so simple and cutesy on the surface, that has a dark undertone, that is extremely well written, handles characters phenomenally, has actually made reading other series more enjoyable for me. Now that may seem like a bit of a stretch, but it really does fit perfectly between series, and considering its usual comedic, lighthearted nature, mixed with it only having around 26 chapters that drop once every 2 weeks, it's a perfect story to indulge and get lost in. It's easy for me to see why this series is selling like crazy and how popular it's truly become. Without a doubt, Spy X Family is on a one-way track to stardom and worthy success, and it's only going to grow bigger from here. Probably won't be long before it gets an anime offer, and with that will most likely blow up into mainstream popularity, which I personally think is what it deserves. It'll be interesting to see where its bright future will go, and what milestones and potential records Spy X Family could possibly reach. In conclusion, I absolutely adore and enjoy Spy X Family with everything it does, and without a doubt, I value it extremely highly. It may seem odd from first glance or maybe even not your cup of tea, but I do recommend giving it a chance. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised with what it has to offer and the overall experience that it will give you. With all of that being said, let me know how you feel about Spy X Family if you have read it, or if you are interested to check it out after this video. I'd love to hear your thoughts. But with that being said, I want to thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Drink plenty of water, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.